Okay. Hey, everybody, I'm your host, Sean Pitcher. Today's guest we have on is Jeff Nichols. Jeff is a former Navy SEAL. He has 20 years of experience as the exercise physiologist, strength and conditioning coach, specifically working with special forces. He now has his company, Perform First, which focuses on military physical preparation, training for combat and war. If anyone has seen Jeff on Instagram, he is a wealth of knowledge, puts out a ton of fantastic information. Was super excited to be able to connect with him through a couple different individuals we know. And I think he'll be an awesome person to have on the podcast today that's going to provide us all sorts of information and an array of things. So Jeff, really appreciate it. Thank you.
You are welcome. And we're just gonna, if nobody minds, we're just gonna carry on with our life in this house. So it's just a natural thing. I don't know, no disrespect, but like I appreciate you having me on, and we just carry on with our life in this house. So welcome to our life.
Yes, absolutely. So Jeff, and this is probably going to be a pretty big overarching question, but what is your roots? Who is Jeff?
It is ironic that you say that, because like, man, it's the cliche of trying to figure out who you are all these years. I was locked into a job that was purposely needed my identity. Like I had to be focused and be all involved. It was appropriate. Now I'm getting out, going like, man, I've always attached myself to, let's say that accumulating or achievement driven, right? And so now I'm like, the irony is that because Catherine and I are moving back down to Alabama, as you know, and my roots, so I'm born in Iowa, very small town, country town, couldn't get away fast enough. I ended up really the fastest and furthest to get away was Troy, Alabama. And leaving there, again, same idea. I got the hell out of there as fast as I could because I was joining the Navy. But who knew I'd go back? And that's the irony now, is like my roots. I think a lot of people would say family, but my family are the people that, when I look back at my life, even through the mistakes I've made and everything, like I have people come back to me from Iowa, from especially in Alabama now, that like I have some real friends down there. And so for me, like that's my roots. Like I'm very much a country boy. I'm outspoken, incredibly outspoken at times, but at the same time, I can really appreciate community and safety in a community. Because that's how I grew up. I grew up in a very still a beautiful, safe community in Iowa. And I'm just but I was too cold. So
I did the same thing too. Like I was in New York. I was from a small town myself, and I could not wait to get away from the snow, freezing, seasonal depression, 6 months out of the year. I was like, let's keep moving down south further and further. That's what we've done.
Forgive me, Sean, your wife is from up north as well, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, so she's from Connecticut.
My wife's from Minnesota, and I'm just like, so our wives all are like, yeah, we know cold too, right?
So it's so nice to go out there in certain parts of the year where you typically expect snow and cold, and it's like today, right now, it's January, it's 70 degrees in Alabama. Like this is terrific.
Brilliant. Yeah. So that's what we're looking forward to. Virginia's not terrible in terms of, it could be a lot worse for sure. Obviously, granted, where we all grew up, but my roots now, I answer that just generally speaking after that long soliloquy is community, like friends, like real friends, people that like you're looking out for them because it feels good to look out for your friends, not just because you have to or need to.
Yeah, and I think you find out really quickly, throughout a lifespan, who your true friends really are. Like you're gonna go, like especially guys, we've been to a lot of places, moved several times in the last 6 to 7 years, and over that time, like you're gonna find out who those people are that you can connect with, go back to, have conversations with, because they'll be the ones that every single year, once or twice a year, are gonna text you or gonna call you and ask how you doing, what's going on, versus the ones that may be there for a couple years and wither away, and like you may never hear from again, or you may hear from randomly in 10 years. But I would say having 30, 40, 50 friends versus having 3 or 4 really good friends is an ideal and a lot better in my sense.
Yeah, no, I never, I guess I realized over time I've collected a number of friends, but I never had like a harem, so to speak, of people that I had around me to feel comfortable. So now it's really, I found out like you said, who your true friends are. And a lot of that, it wasn't even on them and people that are my friends. A lot of it's me. Like um, I have friends for, there's people that aren't my friends anymore for a lot of reasons, good or bad. And then also for my own good or their own good. So it is what it is. Nothing lasts forever.
Yeah. And you mentioned so life after military, is would you equate it very similar to like life after sport, where sometimes people are prepared once they get to that point, they kind of plan to know what to do, versus others could be a little bit lost and is a very hard transition in your guys' space?
I think there's some there's some real lines of similarity for sure. Like I think that if you've been around the military long enough or pro sport long enough, there's some intermingling. Whatever it is, there's some reverence on both sides. So guys are friends without you get to know people, but the point is like there's a real similarity in that transition. I think there's because I think whether there's a combination of anonymity, exclusivity, um, in certain, and also sort of certain way the society sees it as special or unique, right? And I think some of those things, those social things converge, right? And so because of that, I think that creates a certain ego, a certain personality that's similar. I do think there's a real similar, like I tell people, like, yeah, I have personally had conversation with Stephen Curry. I've had with Josh Donaldson. I've had conversations with really spectacular athletes. And to me, like I wasn't a fan. Like I just really was like appreciated. Like I could have a deep conversation about performance with somebody that knew I wasn't like trying to write a newspaper. He like and they both also were like asking me deep questions. Jake Arrieta and I had the most amazing conversation. Holy moly, man! So and that's a whole other story, but that's what I'm saying. Like I could have these super. I got to sit next to Joe Girardi. He managed a 9 inning game with the Phillies and watch Bryce Harper and Reese Hoskins go back to back in a home run and get a high five them at the on deck circle. Like I had access to these people because of my former profession, right? And anyways, I'm kind of going off on a little bit of tangent, but that's kind of like um, where I see there's a real similarity because when you get out if you haven't managed the difference between who you are and what you do, it can be a really, really, real bumpy ride in certain cases. Like my own was pretty bumpy ride coming out and going, whoa, okay. My job was special and I had to harden my way and identify in a certain way with that. But at 10, 12 years old, I didn't identify myself. I was just like a carefree person. And it's like, it's like, I don't want to be 12 years old again, but after all I put myself through, I decidedly put myself through in a good way. I mean, I achieved those things, but after having now put myself through that, I think the thing that we owe most to ourselves as athletes and veterans is that easy transitions. And no, this wasn't going to last forever, probably, and it was severe. But I think a lot of that just is we just weren't educated that, and sometimes the experience has to do that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, in both those situations, you're just having that on switch on 24/7. And then when you get to that point where you're like, it's close, it's going to end, I got to flip that switch off. A lot of people don't know how to like now flip it off and transition to whatever a regular lifestyle looks like. Because probably for a long period of time, like there wasn't really anything regular or normal with the
It's
different types of physical and mental stressors. You're like your normal's here, but someone else's normal is like way over here, and to like switch out of that normal into what the real world is,
and
I can imagine it's
it's
tough.
a thing. It's a snap out of it. It's not to like, hey, don't use your past to kind of shape your perspective, but understand that you have been in this severe environment for so long. Like that was the hard. Like I mean this literally. I would leave my house for a period of time when I got out of the military, realizing how disassociated I had been from public. I would go to the grocery store, obviously to buy groceries, but my intent was there beyond that was to strike up a conversation with the cashier. Because for 11 years of my life, I was just really, really good at being told what to do. I got
Yeah.
really good at telling people what to do, right? You just kind of like objective, like shut up, don't like don't question. You've kind of experienced that a little bit.
And everybody around you knew like that's what it was going to be. So like, I'm going to listen
Totally,
and like, we got to just go do it.
totally acceptable behavior for the whole masses. Like it was conditioning after conditioning after conditioning, and it's appropriate. Don't get me wrong. For that job and for that severe job, that is appropriate. It's just you don't realize that that's the norm, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And you almost have to reteach yourself how to communicate and have conversations with people outside of that environment.
Yeah, and
And
like
some people don't understand
that's the
the
blast about
environment you were in.
like coaching has changed so much because of that. Like I know that's kind of like probably in your line of questionings, I'm sure. Like, but the transition of me getting out in the similar athletes, that's like, yes, those are for some hard times. For not, like it really comes down to how did an NFL player or an NBA player and transitions with some grace. They had some mentorship, and it's not to say they didn't have hard times, but if they were truly passionate about something and they identified with it with real love and conviction, that's a hard one to put down.
Yeah, I mean, because you just, I mean, I like to use the word investment. You're investing years of your life doing that, and that's all you know. That's what you've done, and to be able to just stop that on a dime, and especially for some individuals, they don't have maybe that mentor, that individual to give them appropriate advice to be able to, all right, well, what is the next schematic for my next couple of years that's going to put me in a good position to be able to handle my family and my friends, be able to figure out what the next job or the next thing that I'm going to be working on is going to be, because your job was just, again, like you said, singularly focused on that for such a long period of
Almost,
time. It's like, how do I switch to something different?
yeah, I barely even need to pay attention to a calendar from like a monthly standpoint. It's just kind of like I was on a trip and like, when am I getting back? Didn't matter because I was going on one like another couple days later. So it's nice to get off that too. I feel like that's been the big transition for me is realize I don't have to be in this space of busyness. I don't have to like from sun up to sundown have to be occupied or everyone's going to think less of you. Or that was the perception that like we placed on ourselves. Is like you got to be busy, always working. So
I guess what are some tips of advice, or what are some things you're, because I know you are currently mentoring, people in that space that possibly may be transitioning to some things that you used to do. What's some advice to them? What's some things that you have done in the past that have allowed you to transition over to more of a long-term behaviors and lifestyle that's working for you now?
yeah, I mean it's really it's getting back to for me what I define as like I'm getting back to this truly as holistic or natural as possible for me. Like, and that's just a lifestyle, not just food. So, for me, for me, it starts a lot with a healthy relationship with my wife. That's kind of a big part of it, right? That healthy component is super necessary. But you know, I'm sorry. What was the main question again of that?
Yeah, so let's say people are transitioning out just like you did yourself, from the Navy. What's some advice you would give those individuals
Oh,
on you could succeed or prepare when that time is going to come? Or what are maybe some things that you have done that have helped you that you could pass on to others?
yeah, yeah. So like, big thing was relationship, but for me, like that holistic approach has been like people always ask, hey, how should I prioritize my life when it comes to really just being healthy? It's like, well, the first thing, in my opinion, you have to have is a healthy diet. Like, because I think that that's the first thing that we can do to show self care. And a healthy diet is inevitably will always lean to a healthier sleep. Because I believe truly to my deep in my heart, if a person has good intentions but they come out of order, like the first thing they try to approach is better sleep without a better diet, is not happening. There's no way it's happening. So if they approach a healthy lifestyle first of self care with diet, right, and then sleep and these sort of things, because I improved my sleep by getting a CPAP years ago, and until I really changed my diet to where it was most efficient for my life and healthy for my life, that's when my sleep just man, it's when my diet really improved. It's just I now I really it's not that sleep doesn't come natural and stress doesn't show up, but those are the big things I would say like is it's easy to say value sleep, value diet, value, and then for us, movement. That's what we teach. You know, our big thing is how do we as a business, outside of saying eat healthy, because we're not the professionals. That's why we lean on you. But it's like, okay, what's our big impact? Well, we can encourage them to eat better through professional information. We can say it's really good for you to consider sleep as a high performance tool as well. Here's some things to read. Here's some podcasts, things like that. Make your own decision, but it's pretty obvious. And then it's like, okay, for us, it's like we can help you move better. If we can get a person to understand just really basic movement patterns, but really understand them, not just nod their head, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, but like, no.
Because you'll get a lot of that. It's like encourage. I mean, I would do the same thing with even, some of the military schools that I'm in. I'm like, ask us questions. If you don't know something, keep asking, keep bugging us. Like, we're
Right.
here to serve you. We're here to help you guys. It is not annoying. Like, I can guarantee you, and this goes for any place that you're at. Like, if you have a question about something, everybody else probably has the same exact question, or maybe doesn't even know it to the level that they may want to know it. So just ask it. Because guess what? You're probably not going to only help yourself, you're going to help everyone else around you at the end of the day, too.
Yeah. You know, the military, that's where the piece I would say we learn is like the military does a very good job of you like taking care of your buddy, taking care of that unit, and then taking care of yourself last. But I think I understand that mentality, but also there needs to be understand like that's contextual. Sometimes taking care of yourself first is
Yeah.
what's best for everyone. And what does that mean? Right. And that's a whole other conversation for the unit or whatnot that, but like as a team, but that's what I say,
And
like
if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be there for anybody else.
no, it's a
And
strange thing.
sometimes you just want to keep pushing yourself to the side, pushing yourself to the side, but it's like you're just going to run yourself down. And it's like now you're worthless. And it's like if it's your wife, if it's your kids, if it's your job, what? Now you're giving 40, 50% to that instead of 100%.
Yeah, you're banking on your durability, not like that's not what we're questioning more. I think that's the thing too, especially when you get to a higher selection unit, especially like pilots and such. Like you can't really just ever. There's a point where you just can't take a day off. I'm honestly right. There's
Yeah.
a point where those jobs get so specific. You're like, well, another. I spend 6 to 8 Christmas or Thanksgiving gone in 8 years. You're just never around. So
Yeah.
you kind of
That,
that's the other transition now is like, whoa, what do I do with all this free time? That is
that's how I was when I got done with football. I was like, I had film, I had lift, I had practice, and then who knows what else that was going on with the coaches wanting to meet with you. And that could be 4 to 6 hours of your day on top of going to eat, going to classes.
yeah.
And it's just like at that point, all that's just stripped away from you. And you're like, what do I do with myself? Because this was my identity and what I was doing for so long, and now it's just gone. How do we productively fill this time that's going to help progress and push me forward?
Yeah, it was hard. It was odd. That was like, I think that's where a lot of business owners fail too. It's like they don't there's a lot of time managed or mismanaged when you're trying to run a business and you don't know how. So
Yeah.
that's from experience too. Not the current one. That's why also why this one is so different because there's some serious lessons learned from before.
Mhm. And I like a couple of things you said there. I think my big thing was sleep. I call sleep the cheat code. If sleep is going to determine a majority of the decisions, how you feel mentally and physically, your appetite, your mood, all that's dictated by the decisions you make the night before. You can keep telling people like you got to start your day with a good breakfast, but your day is not going to start well if you do not start the night well before that next day coming up. Um, and that's why I myself, our cognitive performance specialist, like we heavily focus on sleep because if you can fix that, it will probably have a domino effect and correct a lot of other decisions and other issues or concerns that you're having going forward, especially since it's a prime time where a lot of those hormones are getting pushed out and produced. And it's like, if you're going to bed 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, now you're having a lot of hormonal suppression, which is everything's going to work up and downstream. And there's going to be a problem that's going to pop up.
I guess it's not a surprise. I think it's an odd thing where we keep shaking our head and go, I wonder why this is happening. But society has devalued the sun. We'll just say the cycle of the sun is a light switch. A light switch away from being ignored. So
Mhm.
that's really the big thing is our most people's circadian rhythm is so off,
Mhm.
and their diets, like, so it's like sleep is an impossibility, like you say, for so many reasons, just from a biological standpoint. Now, then from just like I'm talking biology of the or ecological standpoint, and then even a biological standpoint, just not a chance, right? And then if you're moving well, a lot of these people are in pain. Now you throw other things on top of that, so they're going to medicate either with food or actual medication to numb that discomfort, because that's really what it comes down to is being really uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I love to use this example with like sunlight and darkness. I'll just say, oh, think back about like middle school, elementary school, when they brought out the TV. And now people nowadays probably don't remember like the teacher rolling out the physical TV to the room. But I was like, you remember when they turned the lights off and half the people are falling asleep? And I go, what happens when you like flick the lights back on? You wake up and you get alert. I'm like, that's the same thing in the morning. Get up, get outside, get some sun exposure, get your eyes to have some light going on. When it's nighttime, put an eye cover on, do blackout curtains, get as dark as possible. Let's get that melatonin flowing so we can get you to feel tired, sleepy, and go to bed.
Yeah,
And I go, if you're going to keep exposing yourself to all this excessive blue light and light at nighttime, 30, 60 minutes before bed, like you're just constantly in this sympathetic state 24/7, and then you're never going to be able to fall asleep or stay asleep.
right. Yeah, I always tell people treat yourself like you're an infant, like you're younger than 6 years old, 6 months old.
Hmm.
Did you keep the room bright and loud? No, you keep it dark and cool. You keep it quiet, right? Typically when you put an infant to bed at that young age, what are you going to do? You have just fed them a high protein, high fat, typically diet out of their mother's body. So
Mhm.
that what does that do? It creates all these biological functions outside of just also propagating good, intestinal sort of bacteria and all those sort of things that I know nothing about. But point is this is not a coincidence,
Yep.
right? Is how the body sleeps and slumbers and wants to shut down, and when it's in a shutdown mode, what nutrients it wants, what it doesn't, how it detoxifies, and it's really, I think it's just kind of heartbreaking that we as an American culture, we as a human society have just we've really just taken granted this body. And we're just blessed with this Ferrari, and it's like, yeah, well, it'll just work, and if it doesn't work, take a pill. So
Yeah, there was a term myself, well, one of our leadership coaches when I was at one of my pre-facility, his big thing is like your body is your business. Like you only get one body, you're never gonna get another one again. So it's like, what are you doing now? Especially with our age group we were working with, there was 12 to 18-year-olds. What are you gonna do now to invest in yourself so that long term, one, you're not having to pay 10, 20, $30,000 for X people to like do this for you. Do you have the skills? Do you have the tools? Do you have the behaviors down? So not only that you can sustain this and problem solve and do these things in a real life situation yourself, but now you're helping your family and friends and every other one around you. Or are you just going to take it for granted, say I don't need to do it, and then here you are, 40, 50, 60 years old, or life after sport and military, and then it's like now you're broken, and now you're so broken, it's like how am I going to like change this around?
right.
Which tends to be, I'm sure, the common thing you probably see all the time.
No, I'm just now being on this side of it, I think that the most sensible thing to do, the easiest thing actually, it's work. It's still a lot of work, but it's much easier work really in terms of getting to a problem solved is attacking it on the front end. Like no healthcare solution has ever solved anything on the back end. And that's not a knock on healthcare. That's not what it's set up for. So this preventative approach it's the model for high performance, really, not just cheek and tongue, but that's the truth. Is like, and whether or not people like to pay attention to that, like that's kind of where my wife and I we just won't go back into anything other than our own private business, because we now have that freedom and realize that
You
although
can set your own standard and be able to push off that knowledge that you think is going to be the most appropriate versus
and
what
there's a real
humanities
upside
are
when
telling
you're young.
you to do.
When you're young and kind of trying to get your feet on get a good foundation. It's like I've been at this now as a coach for 23 years, something like that. And so it's like it certainly wasn't, I didn't have these blessings the first 5 years of my career, 10 even, in terms of the coaching side. But it takes a while to build rapport with your clients, where that rapport is trust. And then that trust is the thing that you're kind of, your business is built on.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, what would you say are maybe some of your like key go-tos to get people from being in that sympathetic heightened state 24/7, because that's probably just what they're used to like flopping them over to that parasympathetic rest and digest? Any tactics or strategies you use maybe in the evening time? I know you obviously mentioned like dark
Myself.
places, keeping it cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just for that, I think the biggest thing. I mean, the link to all this is really comes down to, for me, it's like, yeah, sleep and diet and those sort of things. But how do we actually, because we're good at doing, not very good at just being still in these sort of things. So that's the first thing is really, whether it's prayer really or meditation, or ways to just get to be still and be quiet and breathe. Like that's really what it comes down to for me is, if you really want someone to get really calm and be able to control that and take control of it, and then be more aware, it's breath work, it's breathing, and specifically you want to go beyond that, it's definitely get into meditation. And that, if you really want to heighten your senses, that's an awareness. That for me is, I mean, that's the goal, that's the holy grail, so to speak, for every high performer of every generation, of every culture. So if we all the people that were revered in every category of this world, all the way back to the warrior classes to the current, what is the world reveres now? Some athletes, yes, or I mean, some soldiers, yes, but mostly athletes, the people that are like the Clydesdales of the human race, right? And that's like what we're revered, and all this attention is pushed towards that, And I think that, that that for me is, I don't know, it keeps me pretty motivated, because I don't know. Also, I don't have to deal so much too with some of the other clientele that I used to, but I don't know. Let's see here. But I'm having a really hard time keeping my thoughts together for right now, so just bear with me here.
No
Um,
problem.
just
I
give
would
me.
say, yeah, like Laura and I, we definitely we'll do yoga at nighttime, like 10, 15 minutes, really focus on breathing, keeping it quiet, having some kind of sound in the background. Um, meditation music at night, whether it's like rain, waterfall, fire, something like that. I've also seen a lot more information coming out about like essential oils or lavender oil at nighttime, like in the bedroom, like while you're sleeping. There's some more stuff on the cognitive abilities and being able to help with long-term memory at nighttime as well with that. So yeah,
That's
there's a plethora of stuff you can do.
that's so funny or irony you're mentioning that right now, is because sometimes my short-term memory is just terrible, right? And this
Yeah.
this is the exact case of all my time around concussion and all those sort of things. It's like I can keep a conversation pretty good usually, but sometimes it's like this, it gets the best of me for whatever reason. But so
Mhm.
that's a perfect lesson in what's going on, is like that for me is, if I think the best way to be a high performer really is it just always goes down to taking care of your brain. And for me, it's, we're really good at throttling up, and just like you're saying, how do we gotta we have to, these people that we're asked to really throttle up, these athletes, these pilots, these tactical athletes, we're asking to really throttle up. I think what our professions mutually want to do is, we're teaching them, not, yeah, if we can teach them to throttle up a little safer, right? But really, that's what we're talking about, is how do we get them to down regulate? That's what it really comes down to a lot of times, is they're grow up in this culture where it's like, don't ever quit, don't this. And it's like, yeah, that's why I'm here. I don't need to be keep told that, right?
Or
Maybe.
just do more, do more, do more, do more. Overachieve, overtrain. Keep doing it. You'll get better success if you just keep doing it. And it's like even some of the athletes and the pilots that I work with, I'll just be like, okay, well you're putting, let's say, I don't know, 4, 6 hours into like training, flying, very intense mentally and physically, but like, what are you doing the other 12 to 16 hours to put just as much work into the recovery part? Because if you're not putting all the work into the other part, which is the recovery, then how are you going to be able to continue to keep doing that day in and day out, repetitively over weeks, months, and years? Like
Right.
that's the real question. I'm like, you guys have to ask yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, I mean, for me, just my hindsight answer is like, I just never was totally taught, unfortunately. And it's not casting blame. I think that's why kind of what I do is like, I wasn't taught not just the value of this, but just a little bit of good basic instruction in some of these areas. Just good basic information is really all we're saying. It makes a world of difference. Because beyond that, like beyond that, if someone's even just applied healthy fitness, healthy diet choices, and healthy sleep, like they're gonna have a great life, a much better life. Now, if they decide to really dive in, wow, that's just extra, right? Awesome.
Yeah, and it's just super exciting, and obviously the military tactical space is just investing so much more money on the front end now to have strength, nutrition, cognitive, and it took a lot of years for them to figure it out, but we're finally at a place where they're like, yeah, we should probably invest on the front end, like we said earlier, and that way they're hopefully in a lot better place. So when they get out 30, 40 years old, like they have all this information and knowledge, and yeah, they may be a little bit broken, but they're not completely broken where they can't be
Right.
successful in anything.
Because you really, I mean, I don't think we'll ever be able to totally remove certain jobs in the military. You'll never be able to remove the physicality. So there is just like saying, hey, I'm going to remove the wear and tear of a given professional sport. It's like
Not gonna happen.
they're really for we don't want to try to compare them as equals, but we can compare them to saying, hey, there's definitely a physical toll placed on them. There's an endocrine toll placed on them. There's all these different common cortisol tolls, all these sort of injuries, common stuff that happens, like the over a career of someone in the military or the career of someone in pro football. It's like they may have two surgeries, and those surgeries they're dealing with all those other things, right? And so it's like compensation patterns, all this stuff. So, I think again, we can draw even more, continue to draw similarities in sports still.
Yeah, and it's like and to that point, we can't 100%, like you said, control it, but what can we do to support, and what can we do to embed with these particular military tactical groups that is going to hopefully put them in a better situation. And like
Right.
we can at least do that bare minimum. Like at least we're going to have a lot more people in a lot better situations long term, and a lot more families that are going to be happier because they're going to have that mom and that dad to still be able to be functional, to still do stuff with their family and their kids, which is what any parent wants to do long term.
Exactly. Yep.
So what are some common injuries you would say that you see prototypically in the tactical space? Is it dependent on if it's Air Force or Army or Navy or Special Forces, or do you just see across the board like, hey, here's these 3 or 4 things that it's just like all the time that's happening?
Yeah, like it kind of depends on the stages. Like the guys that are going in like this early stages, the selections, like the deselection stuff, we see a lot of common injuries because see a lot of shin splints and shoulder and things, just positional stuff, lower back pain. That's real consistent. But that's a lot of consistent with inconsistent training they've gotten. But then we get the guys that get through selection and they're like, there's common injuries coming out of that because maybe they've healed, maybe they haven't totally, because now they're thrown into a whole other mix of tactical sort of events from, from vehicles to mounted patrols to mountain stuff to skydiving. So there's like constantly shifting time zones. So there's just in phases, but I would say across the board, typically for a lot of guys, it's probably not that dissimilar in sport, but it's a lot of concussions. We'll go head to head down. A lot of concussions, right? There's. I would say that there's a fair amount of neck problems, but it's top 5 to 6 issues. Guys' shoulders typically don't last very long.
Shot.
The back is always, the spine is always, especially the lower back is a problem for guys, like I said, going in early. The longer they stay in, the more that pain like starts going up the lumbar spine, I think, and then you start seeing necks getting very, very anterior on these guys. So the necks get worse, but most of all this guys, their hips get super locked up. Like they're super quad dominant. Like they have huge glute max. The glute medius is almost entirely turned off. So their VMO is huge, right? And all these other things are overcompensating in the quad because your glute medius, you're basically hunched over because you're weight bearing all the time.
You just arch the whole time.
Yes, your glute medius is completely shut off. Your neck is forward. all these sort of things that we see, especially when they start really loading weight like rucksacks or wearing really shoddy boots. Like they're just military boots and large, because that puts you in such a ankle disposed, like it's such a disposition of your ankles to be in. It already has to be in that position, and most of them have a very narrow toe box. So most guys' feet are hamburger.
Yeah, I know that, like Lorifon got some shoes that are more like wider toe box. Because I mean, if you think about it, and people don't think about it, but like if your toes are in this rounded position for this period of time, not having to do miles and miles,
All
it's
of the
like why do
stress
you
has
think
to
you have
go
so much
right at the
dysfunction?
Achilles. All of the stress when the foot is in a convex position, like you said, and it foot strikes, the toes cannot splay. When the toes cannot splay, it goes into an arch, or it goes to a collapsed inward arch, right? So the inside of your knee will hurt. Yep. And the inside of your hip will start hurting on your lower back. Your lower back and inside of your hip will start hurting. It's because your glute medius got turned off. Your hamstring is taken on. Right? So your QL, your quadratus lumborum, your obliques start firing because you're heel striking. So this is all like real basic stuff, but it just comes from misloading or misunderstanding posture when loading. Right? You ask most people like, "Hey, what's good posture?" And they throw their shoulder blades together and go, "No, that's terrible posture. Don't squeeze your rhomboids. Flex your butt, flex your lats, and pull your neck back. And externally rotate your palms." Like that. And people like they feel terrible in that position. I go, "I know, because you're never
Because you've
ever
never been in it.
ever, and that's what your body wants to be in. But you've told it by posture and habit that's not necessary. We're going to do it our way. Gravity, I got gravity. Like, no, you don't. Nobody does. So yeah.
So I guess how do you mitigate that then? Because you know if you're gonna get a certain boots and that's the boots they're gonna give you, is it just stuff you're doing outside of not wearing the boots, like rolling out your feet or toe separators, or like I guess how do
Yeah, all
you?
of that, because the boot is just a tool, and a lot of times the tools have a very short life. 6 months selection, this selection. At some point, when you get to the unit or destination, in many cases, you have choices. You have choices that allow for these sort of better choices. But that's where what's missing is the education of, right? There is just this assumption and this labeling that mil spec is somehow good. And I would say that I would argue to the case that is absolutely not always the case, especially when it comes to podiatry. So I think that's, and we have to say, hey, there's reasons why these footwear, are in this training, which are reasonable and they're correct. They need to be safe and functional and durable, all these sort of things. That's when the education comes in. Is like, hey, proper foot care is getting you out of these things that protect your feet and allow you to do all these awesome human things. Afterwards, just like you said, there's got to be some sort of education on good, because it's coming down to like, we're not going to fix everything, but if we really get ahead of the common things, the common things will really are the cause to the big problems. So you cut the serpent off the head with these little issues, right? Foot care is a big one.
So I get who do you like? I guess who do you have to approach then, or like how do you make that change? Because it's such a chronic
You have
issue
to be,
across
that's the
the
thing is
board.
I think
Or it's just never gonna happen.
well, here's the only way that I could see that it happens is because there's never going to be a shortage of really highly skilled, highly desirable men who want to go do this thing that I did or go play for the Denver Broncos or whatever. There's always going to be boys that are going to want to do that. And because there's a market for that, like it or not, there's always going to be a way to get there. There's always going to be. And so I look at it and go, okay, well, if we love and appreciate where we come from, maybe, just maybe, and if we have the capacity, just maybe, we should leave it better than we found it, teach these people that it is. Like I get out, and I think some as veterans, some of us have done a poor job, and I've done a poor job in the past by saying, being this begrudging veteran and being the example, like, hey, I can be successful, but I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be the angry veteran, and that's the cost. That's the cost of service. Is I'm going to be angry, right? And I think that's the big difference now is that, there's when it comes to service, it's worth it, and being able to be around and give back to it, to go, hey, it's not broken, but this is the way I approach it, to go, if I educate you in the proper way, and there's a trust built. And I do that over and over again with other people that experience a similar process and trust. Eventually it becomes a way of doing things. And sometimes the way of doing things isn't, I don't have a system. We teach people how to move really, really well and understand it. So, and then we do it in context of our business, of the tactical population. I think it can be done, and it's the way we've always taught great men and women. We teach them. We take the time to do it.
And I've had a couple people on this
soldiers learn to shoot, like in the same exact way I got taught how to shoot, got how to skydive, make explosives, dive, do all sorts of crazy nonsense. I got taught very specifically how to do that. So you mean to tell me I don't have the capacity? Like, I've jumped out of a damn airplane at 46,000 feet. Like, I've jumped over 25,000 feet dozens and dozens and dozens of times. And you mean to tell me I have the capacity to do that and take human life? Someone can't explain to me a good diet and proper sleep and foot hygiene. That's bananas. So the military has the capacity of the greatest intellects. That's what I've met. I met the most amazing minds in the military, but I've met also some of the most aloof. And I'm like, what's going on here, man? Like, there's so many men and women that are so dedicated of service.
It's just baffling how we have these resources and these people in these places that are this intelligent, but why are we still making such poor, unintelligent choices at some of these levels? Like, but what you're saying, what I really like is like in your case, in your business, hey, I'm going to do the best that I can to teach the individuals that come to me. So then hopefully when they go to these places, they have the information, and let's pass it off to the other community that now you're going to be in. So then hopefully we can make change that way.
Think about this, the riflemanship that's in the SEAL teams. The SEAL teams own that. No one's coming in necessarily and developing the tactics for SEAL Team 6. No one's there doing it. So the point is at that level, when those guys are making the rules and defining what is the best, the same thing as what are the Yankees doing behind the closed doors? They're defining, like the Phillies, what are they doing? They're trying to define what's best. And there are places in this world that deserve that reverence of service. And that is why that's why we do this, is because some of us lived it. I got to stand on the shoulders of heroes and legends. And I did it with less than I thought that we should. I saw sporting teams have things in abundance, but none of them were putting their life on the line on a nightly basis for a decade.
Yeah. And when you get to take that step back now in the place that you're at, you're like, we could just do so much better. There's so much more stuff that these individuals now going into it, there's no reason we shouldn't be supporting them from a multitude of different angles so they're as successful as they can be. Because especially like you said, the environment is going to be challenging. We can't 100% control every environment, every place that we're going to be going, getting sent.
We don't
But
want
there's
that.
definitely a lot of people and a lot of smart people in these spaces that can help them manage that.
Yeah, and these people don't want to be sent to places that are easy. That's the crazy part, right? It's like, I didn't
That's the thrill. They enjoy that.
I want to do the easy job, just respectfully. I wanted to do the hardest job I could do. And when I got there, I was like, because I just signed up to the hardest, and I've got the best weapons, the best parachutes, the best demo, the best coach, the best teachers, like the best mentors. Like, wait, there's no dietitian here? Like, where's the weight room? Like, oh, there's two athletic trainers for 3,000 people? This is
Yeah, good luck going to go see them.
it was literally two athletic trainers for like SEAL team. When I got to the West Coast, it was SEAL team, right? 1, 3, 5, and 7. Those 4 SEAL teams, a couple hundred people per and attachments. So there's probably 5,000 or 6,000 SEALs at one, or active duty people assigned to that center. And at one point, there was like one athletic trainer. When I checked into the team, you're like, and it's crazy because you're like, you have all this advance and all these sort of things, and understanding that there's real need and complexity for all these human functions, but except for food and
And you would think that's just basic logic.
yeah,
Here's how many people you have. Here's the one athletic trainer you have. This doesn't make sense.
doesn't
The
work.
ratio is so high that it just becomes damage control at that point. That
But
that one person is literally worthless.
then you lose rapport. You lose that sense that, well, as people come through, it's very hard for the military to trust, because in the past, this is not the first time that the military has been like, oh, we're gonna have this amazing thing, and then no, it didn't happen. It's like, it's what's best for you guys, and it becomes a frustrating thing, but that's why we keep doing it, because people keep stepping up to serve. So as long as they do that as well, then here we
Yeah,
are.
absolutely. So we listed a few of those common injuries. I know obviously your business is big on obviously preparing people for these different situations. So maybe talk a little bit about your philosophy, how you approach training a tactical military individual.
Yeah, I think for me, it's I do it the same way the military teaches, in the sense that I try to be very concise. I like to demonstrate, because I think that that's something the military doesn't. My experience in the military, I had an exceptional group of all instructors that all could do what they said. Hey, I need you to do this. It wasn't just do what I say. Like, and that I think that's a big component of for me, is in my philosophy is, at this point in the game, I don't have to do it to do the intensity, but I should be able to demonstrate everything with the highest skill. That's absolutely what I believe in, because when I was through the teams and all the shooting schools, the sniper schools, the breaching schools, I learned from amazing teachers. And so it's like, okay, and some guys have had good coaches and bad coaches. We've all had those. And it's like, okay, where do I want to fall? Where does my wife and I want to fall in someone's spectrum of learning as an athlete? It's like, I want to be remembered as like, man, those two in Virginia Beach, they helped out a lot. They were super helpful. That for me would be the best.
Yeah, it's like for someone to respect you, if you're asking them to do something and you can't physically do it yourself, then why are you having them do it in the first place? Or if you're going to demonstrate it, but you can't really demonstrate it, then how are you going to then show or explain to them how to do that appropriately? It just doesn't make sense. Like know what you can and can't do.
It's weird that people don't think that people don't see right through that. Like, I'm saying that from a point, like, for me too, for a long time, and you still get caught up in your own nonsense. But it's like, man, like, you can only deny some of these things so long, when you go, hey, this is not a private company. This can't go bankrupt. We can't just keep eroding the resources and eroding the standard, because this is where we hold the line as a society. That's where I believe in. That's what I believe in. That's why I joined the military. I believe in holding a real hard line when people want to push. I don't mind pushing back. It seems to me the people that come through our doors also cut from a similar cloth. They're not afraid to say no. They're not afraid to stand up. And that for me is my philosophy. Is I do not encourage people to train. I'm not here to pat you on the back. I'm here to say, hey man, this is real, and I appreciate your effort, because you may not understand the sincerity of what you're about to do, but you're giving it the respect right now. I see with your effort and your give a damn, and you being here and putting yourself out there and trying really hard when it may not look cool. That's what my philosophy is about. I want to see someone try really hard because they give a damn.
Yeah, and you're going to put in what you get out of it at the end of the day. So it's like if you're going to give a 50, 60% effort, well, guess what? When you have to go give 120% effort and you just gave 50% here, you're going to be nowhere near ready. Like you're going to fall straight in your face. So you're not going to be getting selected because you're going to have that same mentality and that same work ethic and that same um, position wherever you're going to go. So it's like you need to like leave the ego at the door and leave whatever your perspective was at the door. And like some changes have to be made, or you're not going to be able to sustain or last in this position.
Yeah, it's try to get to people. We do what we try to do, how to disarm them, is to get them to realize, like, no, what got you here, we're not trying to devalue any coaching or anything you've learned. What we're saying is that what we're going to display a way of approaching training that really is specific to military life and things and loads and demands upon that specific. The way that we dissect baseball, we're going to dissect obstacle course movements and unstable terrain. But then we're also like, we bring in the experts like you and people to talk about, hey, yes, stress is stress, but in the military space has its own unique sort of things too. So for me, it's, again, and it comes back down to a team, because we, it baffles me sometimes how people have a hard time agreeing. Like we have different professions, but it's like, man, like these guys just they're hungry to learn too. That's real interesting. Is this population is very hungry to learn.
Yeah, I've definitely found that in our current situation as well. Like the internal and external motivation, that's not a problem. Because guess what? If they're not motivated, you're gonna get kicked out. Like you're not gonna be there. Like, so you have to be the best of the best. You gotta be on top of your stuff. Like you gotta work hard, you gotta study, like you gotta put the extra effort in. Because if not, they will just find somebody else. And especially if you have a stick buddy or you have a partner or whoever that is, now if you don't succeed, you're letting that person down. And good luck looking that person in the face and telling them like, "Yep, I didn't give my best, and you're gonna have to find a new person to do this with because I wasn't able to achieve that because I gave a 50%."
Yeah,
Most motivated people are going to be like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get help. I'm going to do whatever I have to do so that doesn't continue to happen. So when I come back up and I have to repeat this, it's not going to happen again. I spent the last 2 days to figure this out, and now it's correct.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's that. My philosophy coincides with that. Yeah.
And so, what would you say was the overarching reason now, then, in the space you're in now, to transition to creating performance first?
Yeah, like it came, I mean, for me, like it came from experience, coming from different weight room experiences and what I liked and didn't want and didn't want to go back to with respect to just things, sometimes in weight, as a strength coach, as or whatever it might be, you have to take positions to get some experience and find out you don't like that. And that's okay. I think that's one of the things for me is, I've stayed active in this profession doing what I do now because I've kind of bounced around and I found a place where my heart is at. And that for me is where it's made this job pretty easy for me because I'm training, I'm training the athletes that the way that my coaching is and the way that I am and the way that I'm passionate about and the way that comes out in my coaching, it's this demographic.
Yeah. And mentoring shapes you, I think. Like you said, you're not going to take everything from every single person. You're not going to enjoy everything. But if there's at least one or two nuggets in there that you're like, hey, this works in my philosophy, I think this could definitely accompany what I'm doing. It's going to provide some value to whatever the population I'm going to work with. I'm just going to take that and add it in there. And I'm going to kind of formulate and make that to whatever I want it to be and whatever it's going to be. And that's going to lead to hopefully me being successful. But I think we can all say we would never be in the positions that we are if we didn't have all the great mentors before us to be able to put us in these positions to be successful.
Yeah, for sure. I love strength conditioning and football and baseball and those sort of things now because I understand it all enough to I can kind of be a fan still. Like I have friends and stuff that all obviously coach in different universities, different places and stuff, and being able to go visit and being in that environment and sport and like take it as a strength coach and with joy and see sport from because I get to work with the military and it's very serious. So when I do get to go see sports and be around other places, like I'm able to enjoy it a lot more because I think also because I'm not looking for another job. I'm not trying to find where am I going to be happy. I'm really happy what I'm doing, and so I can go and see other people in their profession with joy. I like to go see other people work and see how they work, and they're because people that I respect, and it's nice at that level too because it's pretty mutual. Like we're not trying to steal anything. We're just trying to like, hey, like this is what made me successful or help me out. Like what are you doing? And then and I think that that's where you grow that real professional network that's mature. And I think that that's where you also make, like, we're able to make impact, not just because of who we are, but because we've connected with other people that believe in educating from a place of care and experience. And that's been the biggest difference for us, is surrounding ourselves people, not just with people that are loud and obnoxious, and because I can be that too, for sure. But people that are that care from the right place.
Yeah, there's no secrets out there. I mean, it's, you get around some of these professionals and they're like trying to like, I'm doing this secret strength and conditioning program. It's like you're doing everything that everybody else is doing. What it really comes down to is like, what's your culture? Can you coach? Can you teach? Can you educate? Can you help people
The
understand that?
best
Can
out
you
of
help
your
them
athletes in a
apply it?
healthy way. Yeah, exactly. Like, are you really maximizing their potential in the healthiest way? Because if you're not, then you're not maximizing it. Granted, when it comes to sport and high performance, you wear yourself down. It's like anyone that says like you want to be world champion at something or be the best in the world at something, through the course of trying to forge that world's best, you're going to shave off some years of your life of like training and scars and or whatever, who knows, or even just risk of death. But like that's kind
Mhm.
of the irony of it too, is like with this real great effort, um, and with so many of our military, it's like the reward for them is never, they're not chasing the dollar sign. But I do think it's honorable. It's honorable to think that we should be able to educate them as deeply as we can to take care of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, last question I got for you just to wrap this up. As long as you've been doing this, what continues to drive you and keep you motivated on a daily basis to keep doing this?
Yeah, it really it's funny because I've been asked this sort of question a lot over the years as a coach. And man, I this question was kind of like this question was asked to me, I think at Summer Strong once. And just that the ego of that person standing in front of that crowd is just so foreign to me now.
Mhm.
Not that guy can't show up sometimes, but I'm gonna answer it this way: is like I remember also being there and listening to another speaker, and he was talking about the importance of building relationships, right? And so, what drives me now, what keeps me going now, it's the very thing that I never thought I had any real appreciation or understanding, or I didn't need it. I didn't need relationships. I didn't care. I didn't care where you're from. Just shut your mouth, train. Who cares? I'll get the best out of you. Just listen. I never, because that's how I for whatever reason, as a child, as a soldier, as a whatever, that's how I like to be coached. Just shut up, do what you're saying. This is exactly how you do it. You do like this, you'll be the best. Okay, do it like that. Just I'll do it. I could emulate, right? So now even now in hindsight, as a young athlete, what I was missing is exactly what we try to offer our athletes now, right?
Mhm.
Is that connection, that hey, like I understand exactly what you're going through. I'm not exactly you. I didn't come from your experiences in your life and maybe your family situations. I didn't come from that. But you're here in Virginia Beach, standing here in front of my wife and I, and you are making a real effort to give you everything you got for something that you can't quite put your finger on, but you call it faith. Like, I'm going to go do this thing and I have this calling and I can't, people think I'm crazy. People don't understand it. My family, my friends, they don't understand why I want to do this. And I can't explain it either, but I'm drawn to go do this thing.
Mhm.
Those people still walk through our door all the time, all the time. They,
Relatability is huge. If you can't relate to somebody in some way, especially with a story or an experience, right, it may be hard for them to sit there and listen to what you have to say. It's like, because you have that sense where it's like, well, you didn't go what I went through. You're like, you don't know what I'm talking about. But
yeah,
it's like with your experience and the things that you've gone through, like you've probably got 7 million stories you can pull out a hat and give an example, but like I went through that very exact same thing, and here's my
right,
experience, and here's how I can help you hopefully go through that. a lot easier and better to the best of your ability
and
versus
that's
having to struggle with it alone.
like I want to I love the art of coaching. That drives me for sure. The art of like, but it's not. It's like yes, I always want to make someone squat better and do those things and like, but it's so much more important than that. It's for me like it's not a cliche. Like man, it saved my life. Like there's things in my life that have saved me. Like my wife is an angel. Meditation has saved my life so many times. I can't even tell you just from that, be able to calm myself down, find some real place because I'm a light switch away from being the Hulk. I can smash some shit. Like I'm not. That's that's not like a point of bravado. It's really not. Like
It's just reality. Like it can happen.
I was bred for that. I mean, I was absolutely made into this willingly. This is not like some Manchurian candidate weirdness, man. Like I'm the most driven human being I've ever met. And that's like, I mean, I'm talking not like, I'm not intelligent. I'm saying like, give me a challenge worth doing. And I typically would be like, I would not back down from it. And then because I saw it as a point of doing for me, it was like, that was I don't know why as a child, I was like, that's what I saw. I revered people that achieved, you know? And so that's what I see. These guys come in and I'm like, God darn, man, like you could just feel the same energy as 22-year-old Jeff, just
Yep.
chomping at the bit, ready to go accomplish something, you know, whatever's out in front. I see these guys come through and I'm like, God, man, like it's
That's why this age group is like fantastic to work with. Like this 18 to like 25, 26, like the energy is so high. So it's like it doesn't really matter what age you are, like you're gonna be able to feed off of that. And even yourself, no matter your age, like you're gonna be able to do some similar stuff that they're doing just because of what the room feels like at that point.
it's it's compelling, man. Like I'm not going to go do that job again, but with these guys, with that, they converge here, and there's like that our class right now. There's 8 guys, and that all 8 guys wanting to do this amazing thing for themselves and for their country or whatever their reasons. All these amazing
Mhm.
reasons, all that good energy is just jammed in this little space and gym in Virginia Beach, and they come in every day with my wife and I and our dog, and this just crazy positive energy to achieve goodness. Like just why? Like just to be good, man. And it's such a freaking joy to be around them.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's about the human and the person, like the degrees, the experience. Most people aren't going to care about that. It's like, what kind of person are you? And if you're a good human being, that's what's going to really matter. And if you can build and relationships and connect with them, and
Yeah,
everything else kind of falls into place
forgot
after
that.
that.
I guess that's what I was saying. That big swing from the big ego and Sornax. No disrespect to that. Just me. I was just the ego monster, and now I'm like and I heard it that very one like build relationships. I was like, whatever, dude. Like relationships, whatever. And like, boy, I that I appreciate. Like I really and I guess my point too is like in hindsight, me looking back, like I was like, yes, I did so much on my own, forging on my own, but that wasn't because I was not wanting a mentor. That was just small town Iowa, didn't have one to kind of grow. I just did my own thing, you know. So um different
Yeah, it's
times.
hard to rely on other people or get help from other people when you grow up in a situation. I've had a very similar experience in my background where you're the one doing all the stuff for yourself, you know, and to be able to get that trust and be able to have other people help you, like, is definitely not an easy thing to let people come into your life to be able to do that. It's hard.
Yeah, no, it is strange to share a space with somebody when I guess I had the environment I placed myself in, the severe environments of sport and military. I placed myself in those willingly those environments, and in doing so, I didn't realize I put up these I guess these walls of like to protect. Like for me, I used to say like now in hindsight, I used to cliche. I'd be like, I didn't tell my girlfriends or my ex-wife too much about my life because it was like, well, I'm just protecting you, and it's like and that lack of trust. Now I look back, I'm like, oh, okay. Um, with these guys.
He explains why certain events happen or why things didn't work.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, and those are the life lessons that are, for me, are we're not trying to change their life or making better decisions, but we'll start with the weight room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always going to work out there. But Jeff, really appreciate you coming on today, giving us some of your words of wisdom. Again, anyone who's in the military tactical space, I think will definitely enjoy this and be inspired by this. Anyone who wants to contact Jeff, his contact information is going to be below in the show notes. You can follow him on Instagram, consistently putting out lots of great social media videos, information on there. Mine will be down there as well. We have obviously over 60 different episodes on the Roots podcast with a variety of different practitioners, strength conditioning, athletic training, financial wellness. You think about it, we probably have it. We're going to be bringing on a speaker to talk about it. So that way practitioners across the country are able to have somebody that they can relate to, they can talk to, they can have a conversation like this that's organic and be able to grow and build as a group and a unit. And not being in a silo, because there's nothing you're going to get done in a silo. We all have to do this job at the end of the day together as one unit. So thank you, Jeff.
You're very welcome. Appreciate it.